Hey everyone, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by John Cartwright and Zelda Universe's Amanda Van Heil to discuss the recent tease by Eiji Aonuma during a Zelda concert that a Skyward Sword HD might be in the works. Now, this was only a single question during a concert, but porting Skyward Sword does make sense, so we wanted to give our thoughts on what we'd like to see from a potential HD port. So, let's get started. And yeah, John, you're the one that reported on this and knows the most about it. I mean, it's kind of simple overall. Basically, from what I understand, Eiji Aonuma was at a concert. He asked if people were interested in a Skyward Sword HD, and of course people responded positively. Is there any more to it than that, John?
That's kind of the gist. So all of this is coming from Japanese Twitter accounts, so we are working off translations, and some people in Resetera, some native speakers, have translated for us as well. So yeah, that is generally the gist. Aonuma was just kind of teasing Skyward Sword at the event. But as you say, it's kind of inevitable. They've already ported over Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD back on Wii U, and Skyward Sword is just kind of the missing link. And now that we have Joy-Con, which are basically Wii Motion Plus but miniaturized, it's kind of like, this is just the perfect time for Skyward Sword HD. But yeah, we have a lot to think about here, because Skyward Sword was kind of a polarizing game, and there's a lot of ways they can take this HD remaster. Like, will they get rid of the motion controls? Will it just be docked only? That's a lot we can talk about there. So, Amanda, I know that you're kind of torn on Skyward Sword as well. But where do you want them to take the control scheme? Like, do you think they should keep motion, or do you think they should stay a bit more traditional with this remaster?
I think they should make it optional, because I know a lot of people really did enjoy the motion controls, especially getting to swing the sword. I know that was really satisfying for a lot of people. But for others, like myself in particular, I really did not enjoy the motion controls because I was always having trouble getting it to calibrate. So I would like for it just to be optional, especially since the Switch is also a portable system. So with it being a hybrid, you want to be able to play it on the go, and it's one of those things that it's kind of hard to swing the sword around while you're sitting on an airplane. And that's kind of what Nintendo's trying to capitalize, is being able to take it around and play it and make it accessible. So I would like to see it happen, but I would like the motion controls to be optional.
Yeah, I've had that mindset too. It's going to be very hard to play on a portable if they just keep the motion controls. But then again, we do have some games like 1-2-Switch and Super Mario Party, which just do not have handheld mode. Like, you can play it in tabletop, but you always have to take the Joy-Con off and play with motion controls. And with Skyward Sword, I think if you just took away the motion controls, that would break a lot of the game. Like, combat in that game revolves entirely around moving the Wii Remote around in one-to-one motion. And I guess you can maybe map that to an analog stick, but I just don't think it would have the same effect.
I think that would almost be more cumbersome for me, like holding down a button and using the analog stick in order to do the slices in that direction. Like, it'd feel awkward, or it would be broken and you'd make the game just way too easy. Because I've heard plenty of people have trouble with the motion controls in Skyward Sword, but I never did. Like, for whatever reason, I had just the perfect experience where it never really gave me any trouble. Like, there were moments during the gameplay where I'm like, okay, I'm not making, my sword swings aren't quite correct and I'm messing up on this, but I felt that was my fault, not the game's. And so I honestly can't imagine this game without the motion controls. I think it was built entirely around them. And as soon as I saw the Joy-Con initially and how it did have motion controls, I'm like, oh, okay, they did that so they could port Skyward Sword. So I've been waiting for this port because it just, to me, the Joy-Cons were designed so they could port Skyward Sword.
Mm-hmm.
And also the Joy-Cons are a bit more advanced than the Wii U controllers and the Wii controllers. So that might actually help the controls better for those that did have trouble with it. Because I had trouble with it half the time. I was fine with the combat, but it was when I had to fly and things like that, where you really had to hold the controller straight. That's when I couldn't do it as well. And I feel like maybe that now that the Joy-Cons are here and they're a little more sensitive, and technology has come further, so we have better controllers. It might be that actually fixes a lot of the problems.
Speaking of technology going further, it'd be so cool, if you're in a fight with just an enemy in Skyward Sword, and when you clash swords, you sort of feel that with HD Rumble, make a bit more impact there.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. Oh my gosh, that would be so cool.
I feel like they could take some major advantage with the HD Rumble this time around, and just have some really cool elements. Like as you're flying the beetle, it actually feel like a low-key buzz as you're going around.
Oh my gosh, that would be so awesome. That would be so cute.
The controls do seem to be the big sticking point for this, as far as what you might want to see from it. But there's a lot of other elements to Skyward Sword that people have issues with. Either they really enjoy or they really don't like. We were kind of talking about this before we started this discussion, Amanda, but how do you fall on Skyward Sword as a whole?
Skyward Sword as a whole, I really enjoy. There are a few elements that I didn't like. I wasn't a fan of having to do the imprisoned battle over and over. The Silent Realm that many times was a bit much. But for the most part, I really enjoyed it. The game itself is beautiful. I enjoyed the music. The quests were very different. We got introduced to different types of characters that we had not seen before. I liked the concept of Skyloft being in the sky, and so that made it a little different, of just being in such an isolated world as opposed to just being like an offset Kokiri forest. And I also just really enjoyed the story and the relationships between the characters. And that really made you want to finish the game. It really made me want to find Zelda and save her, just knowing the stakes were so much higher for Link in this one than in previous titles.
Yeah, I kind of feel similar. I like the story a lot. I feel the intro is really interesting, because Skyloft almost feels like Hogwarts in the sky, almost. You have like all these relationships with everyone there. Like, everyone knows each other because they've all grown up around each other. And it makes like going down to Hyrule, it kind of makes it feel impactful, because no one has ever been down there before. Like, no one on Skyloft has been down there. So it's like you're discovering this place for yourself. But yeah, I also have problems with the pacing as well. Like, it feels like you could take a lot out of Skyward Sword and maybe have a better game overall. One thing I really don't like is the dowsing portions. So basically, before you go into a dungeon, usually, you have to go around with your Master Sword and just point it out and find a certain thing in the overworld. That happens a couple of times in the game. And Amanda also mentioned the Silent Realm. Though, actually, I didn't mind the Silent Realm that much. It felt a lot like the Tears of Light from Twilight Princess, but with a bit more danger. And I felt it was an improvement beyond Twilight Princess, but maybe still not the best, though.
The Silent Realms just had me panicking every single time. Like, as soon as I set off one of those, I would just like start screaming. I don't know why that made me. Anything timed or stealthy makes me so nervous. I've always been like that.
I really enjoy Skyward Sword. It's probably in my top 5 Zeldas, but I'm also a huge sucker for stories, and Skyward Sword, as both of you said, has a wonderful story compared to a lot of the previous Zelda games, and it felt like this was the first time you really got a good connection with Zelda, at least the first time since Spirit Tracks, where there's this really great relationship between Link and Zelda, and it felt like they were really they really started focusing on that in recent years to characterize both of these characters, and they succeeded wholly, like with these two, and I really enjoyed it, and I think that carried me through a lot of the game, and I was able to overlook a lot of the issues because I did everything I could in this game, like every heart piece, every side quest that I could do, I was there and doing it and enjoying it. And I don't always do that with Zelda games. Like, I didn't do it in Wind Waker, I didn't do it in Twilight Princess, or even Ocarina of Time. The only other game I can think of where I did everything the first time I played through it was Majora's Mask 3D. So I feel like that has to count for something, where I was that addicted to Skyward Sword that I needed to do everything in it.
Both Majora's Mask and Skyward Sword, they both have very much fleshed out stories with lovable characters that you really care about, so you want to do those side quests because you almost feel like you know them and you want to help them, like you yourself want to do something about it. And I think that says a lot about those two games, because I'm like you, I'm really big on story. To me, if the game has a good story, I can overlook some of the controls. Like, I can overlook a lot of the controls in Skyward Sword because the story was just so fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciated the smaller scale of it all, because it feels a bit more personal, which makes you want to do the side quests, but I didn't really explore all that much. I didn't do it 100%, I played to completion and I did a few more side quests after that, but I always found the sky was maybe a little barren. I know the Great Sea in Wind Waker is obviously far more barren, but I still, I enjoyed exploring the sea in Wind Waker a bit more. I think they captured this vibe of being on the open water a lot more than Skyward Sword did with the sky, and I loved like trying to find an island in every quadrant. It felt like there was more to do, even if the world was emptier. Whereas with the sky and Skyward Sword, you can kind of see it all just by looking around. And I don't know, I just didn't really feel the need to explore the sky as much as I did the Great Sea or other Zelda overworlds.
Yeah, the sky was definitely a weak aspect of Skyward Sword, where you're right, you saw it and you went to it occasionally and that was it. There wasn't really much to it. The surface is what sticks out to me more, and I know a lot of people have issues with that because of the backtracking and how you're going through this same 3 areas and it's not connected at all. You have to just sort of drop in and there's where you're at. There you go. But I did like how they made the revisits interesting, because you did the same thing in Ocarina of Time where you went to Zora's domain as a kid and then you had to go back and there was a different aspect, but there wasn't really that much new beyond just the water temple itself and a few new activities. With Skyward Sword, you got brand new areas that you'd never explored before, and how they expanded upon them was always kind of fun and interesting to me. But I also do not mind linearity in my games, so I think that also had an effect. So I think all of Skyward Sword's weaknesses weren't ticking any boxes that I usually have issues with for me. I think that's why it ended up so high on my Zelda rankings.
I'd say it's sometimes fun to revisit areas, but then there's times where like the is it the Farron Woods become like flooded?
Oh yeah,
you just swim around collecting
that part
musical
sucks.
notes. Yeah, that part sucks.
I think one thing about exploring, with it only being like a few places that you were exploring, like we were talking about earlier, since you were so isolated up in Skyloft, going down to all these new areas, when you look at it from like Link's perspective, he was visiting just a huge new land, and from that standpoint, he's seeing all these things for the very first time. Everything is completely foreign to him, and I thought that was pretty neat and pretty cool, because we're also introduced to new species that we had not seen before.
That's a good point. Yeah, Skyward Sword does have a lot of new species, and it takes place at the beginning of the timeline. So not all the species that we've come to know across Zelda are present. Like we see ones that come before them. Yeah, it's great to see that the world's sort of building itself up. But I am wondering, are there elements that you think they could maybe cut, or like cut the fat in Skyward Sword, without disrupting the story too much? So I know Amanda mentioned the imprisoned earlier.
Absolutely.
And I was thinking, like, how do you cut them though? Because while the fights are repetitive and boring, it still has the sense of dread. Like it's like this ancient evil is continuously trying to rise up, and you always have to just push it down. And I feel like if you take it out completely, then you're kind of taking away this bit of urgency. But I guess one way to do that is maybe just make the imprisoned fights all different. Like I guess they do kind of mix up a little bit, like with Bruce helping out towards the end. But maybe just have like a complete overhaul for each imprisoned encounter, or something like that.
That would make it a little more interesting, because then they all just kind of started running together, because it was like, didn't I just do this? When you like fight the imprisoned over and over, it felt like anytime I went down the Skyloft, oh, another imprisoned battle. But if they made it a little different, I think it would have been a little more interesting, instead of just, okay, let me hit this guy's toenails over and over and over again.
Yeah, and then you do it again in Hyrule Warriors, and then there's a spirit in Smash Ultimate. Like, this guy just won't leave us alone.
Pretty much. I think the first one is, if I remember correctly, you fight the imprisoned 3 times, or is it 4 times?
I think it was 4 times.
I know there's an extra, like, there's a boss rush mode to get the Hylian Shield, I believe. Mm-hmm. So you have to fight him again there another 3 times. I believe you do every single iteration of him in that boss rush.
Oh, God.
So technically there's 6 encounters.
Yeah, that's
unless there's 4, then there's 8.
Yeah.
So it's either 8 or 6.
Because I feel like the first one was interesting, and the last one with Groose is interesting, but that middle one is so just nothing about it sticks in my mind. All I know is it's coming back. You got to push him back down, and I almost wonder if it's been a while since I've replayed it, so I'm not sure how much it disrupts the story. But I almost wonder if that middle one could just be cut completely.
I really think it could. It seemed really unnecessary. The first time, okay, that's cool, and then the last one with Groose, but yeah, the middle didn't really seem to matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unless it's integral to the story, I think they absolutely can cut it.
It felt more like filler than anything else.
Right, and we have seen with other Zelda remasters that they have cut out some of the filler. Like with Wind Waker HD, they cut out certain Triforce shards in the Triforce quest, and in Twilight Princess HD, they cut out some of the Tears of Light. So, yeah, I wonder if they'll do something like that, like maybe have less things to collect in the spirit realm, and also maybe have like less things to dowels and things like that. It is funny because usually with re-releases they kind of add more content, but what I want is less content. Like just trim the fat a little bit with Skyward Sword, make it a little bit more like better paced.
Yeah, I think that's the key here, is that they need to find ways that they can sort of tighten the pacing a little bit, because there is a lot of fluff when you're going through this game. Like there's some fun fluff, but there's also some fluff that you just get tired of and you don't need to see it anymore. But I mean, overall, like I think there's some really great dungeons in here. Some of the best boss fights in the series. I still remember against I forget his name, but against the giant armor guy where Link gets to his weapon and just kicks the crap out of him. That was probably one of the most satisfying boss fights I've ever fought through. I love that guy.
Was
so good.
I really enjoyed. I cannot remember the boss's name because it's been a while, but it was that octopus that was kind of adorable.
Oh. Yeah,
it was
I know
on the pirate ship. That was so much fun. It was just so different and so fun and silly.
All these bosses are kind of like examples of why the game really should maintain the motion controls, I think. Like there's one where you fight like this robot pirate guy, and if you take away motion controls from that, I feel like you're just having this very simple fight. But when you have motion, you're sort of predicting where he's gonna go. You have to actually like mimic the sword movements. And as Derek said, that boss where you grab his sword and just sort of hit him, you're gonna lose a lot of blow if you get rid of motion controls for that. But you guys are totally right. Like some of the best bosses and dungeons in the series. Like I can't remember the name of it. There's one in Lake Floria, I believe, and it has this it's a sort of this ancient dungeon, but as you go further down, there's this undead world. It's so different to anything else in the Zelda series. Like Zelda games usually have like a forest dungeon, a fire temple, but this one is like unlike anything Zelda's ever had before. And Skyward Sword does that a lot.
Oh yeah, the time shift mechanic, that always stays on my mind.
Oh, that was amazing to see, like when you were going into the past, it was more futuristic then than currently, and it had kind of a Mayan design to it.
And actual sailing where you're going across the sand, but it's actually becoming water as you're going around it. Like there's some really cool
that's
visuals.
Right. I loved that. That was a really good mechanic. I really enjoyed that.
I don't think there's a single dungeon in Skyward Sword that I dread revisiting. I think they're all great. Whereas maybe with some other Zelda games, there's at least one where I'm like, oh, this place again. But yeah, with Skyward Sword, they all feel so fresh and imaginative. And especially compared to Twilight Princess, which had big dungeons, had sprawling dungeons, but they all sort of followed similar themes to other games in the series.
Yeah, like the one unique dungeon was the snow temple with the Yeto and the Yeti, or Yetta and Yeto.
Right, yeah.
What else do you think they should do for this HD remaster? I'm just trying to think what they added actually added to Wind Waker HD or Twilight Princess HD, and I think it's more just tightening elements than anything else. Like, I don't think there's anything too major added to any of them.
Yeah, most of them sort of added like boss rushes, but this game's already got it. I'm trying to think of elements from Breath of the Wild that they might want to implement in this, because we did sort of have beta elements of Breath of the Wild within Skyward Sword. Because you think like the sailcloth was kind of like the precursor to the glider, but that's not really a crucial gameplay element. That's just something Link really uses when he lands. And then we also have like the stamina meter, which was also in Breath of the Wild. But again, I don't think you can add climbing to this game. I think all those elements that were in Breath of the Wild kind of already are in Skyward Sword, just in a younger phase. And I'm not really sure how you build them up without changing the game.
Because one of the ways, like as you guys were talking about the imprisoned fight, like maybe the second fight, you actually have to climb up onto his body and strike the thing at the top, and it uses that stamina meter. Unfortunately, the stamina meter is nowhere near what it is in Breath of the Wild, and I just don't see that as being possible. And I don't see them allowing you to upgrade the stamina meter to the point where you can actually climb up on top of the imprisoned. So yeah, I don't think there's really that much they can do.
Unless they added like a new item or something that allowed you, like a type of grappling hook that allowed you to hook around it.
That is true. That would be cool. Get the double hook shot from Twilight Princess in there.
I love the double hook shot. I
Same.
love
It's
that.
the best thing from Twilight Princess.
It really was. What I would like them to do, and I know this would be like having to add like a whole new level or DLC or something, I was really hoping you'd be able to explore the sky at night and get like a set of goggles to be able to ride around on your loft wing at night to see what it would all look like then. Because when you would fall off at nighttime or try and fly off, there would always be one of the knights who had the night gear and literal night gear to be able to take you up and say, you can't do this at nighttime. So I was really hoping that they would be able to introduce that. I would like to see something along those lines if they were to add something on. I thought that would be really cool.
That'd be really cool. I've never even considered that. Like, whenever you fly, it's always in the daytime. And that was one of my problems with Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu and Eevee, is it's always daytime. Like, I miss it turning to night. Yeah, that'd just be cool just for, like, the dynamic elements of the world. Like, just to fly around at nighttime would be really cool. And, like, maybe they could even have a few more side quests that, like, only take place at night.
Oh, that'd be really neat.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Isn't there that one carnival area? Wouldn't that'd be pretty cool to see at night, lit up like that.
Oh, yeah, because then it could be all lit up, because I just love an amusement park at nighttime when it's all lit up. It's so beautiful.
It's perfect.
Or visiting, like, the Lumpy Pumpkin at nighttime would be fun.
Oh, nice.
Oh, one thing I wonder, actually, one thing that has been introduced since Breath of the Wild that has not been in any other Zelda game, voice acting. Do you think they could do some of the cutscenes fully voiced in this game? Or are we just going to have, like, plain text the entire way through?
It'd be cool, but this is Nintendo, and I don't see it happening.
Well, second question, what kind of voice would Groose have?
Oh, gosh. Who would I cast?
I mean, he's kind of like Gaston. He's a Gaston-type character.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, in my head, I think Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho, for anybody who knows that show.
I'm familiar with it, yeah. I also kind of pictured him as kind of like Biff from Back to the Future.
That's another good one, yeah. He has a good Biff element, but, I mean, I'd be down for voice acting. I think that'd add a pretty cool element to it, but I also don't necessarily see them doing it because that's a lot of extra cost that I don't know if they feel is worth it when it worked fine before.
Yeah, it's one thing. Come to think of it, it's something I think would make the port more exciting because you can tidy up Skyward Sword and make it a bit more of a better paced experience. But how do you sell that? When you're just looking at a game in trailers, it would just look like Skyward Sword but in HD. And I think it needs a bit more oomph behind it. So maybe voice acting is the way to go, or maybe they're going to go all out and do some extra content. But I don't think extra content is exactly what this game needs. I think they've got to tidy up a bit more.
Yeah. I almost wonder, the cool thing with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess is that you definitely could see how the graphics were improved, especially with Wind Waker and just how it was just so animated, even more so than the original, which already held up to the test of time quite well. But I think the art style, kind of like Wind Waker, is so good in Skyward Sword that I can't imagine HD adding that much to it other than tightening up maybe the anti-aliasing or whatever kind of bits there, but it's just like a style works so well. I can look at this game and think, man, it's still beautiful, and kind of the same way that Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are. So I can see it looking better, but I don't know if it's going to be one of those things that pop out at you. So you're right that maybe voice acting would be the way to just get it to pop during a trailer.
I do love voice acting for sure, and it would definitely get a lot of very vocal reactions from the fans of whether they're pro voice acting or anti voice acting, because there's going to be some, doesn't matter how good it is, they're still going to be like, no, they can't talk into this game, that's just wrong. But at the same time, it would make it more interesting. It would definitely make it more lively. This does have the strongest story, so it would make sense to add in voice acting for it, for that matter.
I do want to hear how Girahim will sound. There's a ton of characters.
I always imagine him like James from Team Rocket.
Yes.
That's perfect.
But they're such a vibrant cast in Skyward Sword, and they can really bring them to life if they just give them a voice. But I suppose there's also, on the flip side, when you imagine your own voice for these characters, I guess it gives them a bit more imagination, perhaps. I think voice acting would be a nice little addition to this game.
Yeah, I wasn't sure at first, but the more I think about it, it's yeah, let's do something special for this one, because as of right now, other than tightening up a few elements, I just sort of see this as a straight port.
Yeah, just smooth it up some, get rid of some of the unnecessary, shorten the Silent Realm just a little bit.
Before I started this discussion, I thought I was a bit more negative on Skyward Sword than I actually am, but reflecting on it, it is a great game. And whenever I play it, I do have, but yeah, there are some elements that drag on for a bit too long. And it's a 40-hour game that could probably be around 30 hours. There are parts they can just trim down a little bit. But yeah, I don't mind revisiting areas. I think they always justify it. There's also some parts, like they can get rid of a few more of those musical notes in that Faron Woods segment. They can get rid of a bit of the Silent Realm parts. They can trim down on the dowsing. Because the dowsing is one thing that I never liked. Because you basically just walk around an area with your Master Sword out and just try and find like one particular thing or multiple things. And it always feels like padding. Like, it never feels fun. So I hope the dowsing is turned down a bit too.
And for this one, I think it was just more, hey, let's look at what our motion controls can do. We're going to douse with it. And that was the primary reason for having it, is just to use the motion controls for something else.
Yeah, and you know, on the Wii version with Motion Plus, they didn't tend to use the sensor bar that much either, because it's all taking place within the Wii Motion Plus. So I can't really see the actual Switch controls changing much. But I do wonder how calibration's going to work exactly. Did you need the sensor bar to calibrate in the Wii version?
I don't think so.
I just know you had to hold it. I don't think you had to use the sensor bar. I think you just had to hold it straight or put it on a flat surface, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. And I think there was a way to like recenter it when you were aiming. So
yeah, I had to do that a good bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that is a problem I've had on the Switch as well. Like, whenever I use the Switch as a pointer in like World of Goo or Captain Toad, my cursor doesn't stay still for very long.
Yeah.
Like, even when petting Eevee in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, my hand's just floating around.
I've had a hard time like feeding Eevee berries and petting Eevee and even just getting it centered properly.
Yeah, I got my crash course with The World Ends With You, so that was something.
Yeah, so hopefully they can nail that, but that might just be a limitation of having no sensor bar.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited for it. I'd definitely rebuy it if it came out on the Switch, and I'm totally there for it if they decide to do this. But I can't. That's the funny thing, is I can't think of too many like additions or major changes I would make other than just tightening up the pacing.
Yeah, that's really the only real negative is just the pacing and calibrating the controls.
Yeah, I suppose one way they could add value to this is making it a collection with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. But this is Nintendo, so that's probably not likely.
True.
This is probably going to be a full-on re-release.
I mean, we paid $60 for Tropical Freeze, so...
Yeah. Would be cool, though.
It would be, yeah. But, well, any other final thoughts on a potential HD remake of Skyward Sword?
I would just love to see one. The more I talk about it, the more excited I get at just the thought of it.
Absolutely same thing here. It's a game that I've always liked, but it has had its flaws. But when I rank it with my favourite Zeldas, I do think it's up there with the best. I think I prefer it over Twilight Princess, for one. It's just fun. Like, Twilight Princess gets a bit too...
It's a little gritty.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Whereas Skyward Sword is pure, bright, jolly fun. I think it's a brilliant game, and I'd love for it to get the attention it deserves, because it does have a split user base. And I think some people just don't like that it uses motion controls, and I'm not sure if that's going to change. If there's an option for them, then that's great too.
Yeah, my one thought about re-releasing Skyward Sword after Breath of the Wild was like, well, you're going back to this old style that people aren't quite used to. They're used to this new style that they have right now. But then we look at how the same sort of thing applies to Super Mario Odyssey and how they're re-releasing New Super Mario Bros. U. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whatsoever. They can do this. They can do whatever they want.
Fair point. And then there's still people that want more. There's a lot of people that want more top-down Zelda titles.
Exactly.
True. Yeah, I think we are, like, we're not even on the surface of what Zelda games are going to be coming to Switch. I think they're probably going to port... Well, we pretty much know Skyward Sword's coming now, but I think they're pretty much going to port Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD. Because when you look at Wii U and 3DS, they pretty much had all Zelda games between them. So I think they're going to start bringing all the Zeldas. And then you're going to start thinking, like, what are their main teams doing? Are they going to do a top-down Zelda? Probably. I think there's just going to be a ton of Zelda games on this platform.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And yeah, bring over Link Between Worlds onto the Switch. I'm down.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that would be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see Link's Awakening on the Switch. That's what I'd like to see on the Switch.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love that too. But yeah, with Link Between Worlds, we never talk about 3DS ports coming to Switch. That's like an untapped territory, and I would love that. Mm-hmm. There's tons of great 3DS games, especially Link Between Worlds.
Yeah, Link Between Worlds, Kid Icarus Uprising, get both of those on there. I am happy.
Ooh, that would be great.
Alright, well, I think that covers it for our Skyward Sword HD discussion, so thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And Amanda, where can they find you at?
So you can find me on Twitter at Amanda Van Hyle. Last name is spelled Vanhiel. You can follow me there. I'm with Zelda Universe, so you can check out zeldauniverse.net. I host the news series every Sunday. I'm the host of Zelda News, so you can watch me talk about the latest in Zelda stories, and I'm also on our podcast, and I stream on the Twitch channel. Basically anything that involves somebody being on camera, that's probably where you'll find me.
Perfect. And of course, make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more Orange Zelda and other things gaming as well. Until next time, bye.